Persistence, 4 simple steps. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. Today I wanted to talk about what Napoleon Hill said about persistence. Okay, this is one of my favorite sections of the old book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this is one of those books, it's not for everybody in terms of, it's not always the most easiest read. It has a very different style, language, and everything else in it, but it has so much good stuff in it. It's one of those that I have to have a physical copy of. And there's a lot of books I don't have physical copies of. I'll read things online, or I'll have an audiobook copy. This is one that I like to go back to over and over again because I'm always catching new stuff, and it's usually someone else that tells me about it, which is a funny thing. My friend Joe had brought this up to me, Joe Melling out there. He had brought up, not to me specifically, but he was talking to a group of people about how to achieve consistency, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, and I'm gonna cover what he pointed out of this book. First, I wanted to remind you about my book, 9 Ways to Amazon Proof Your Business. You can get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. If you go check that out, it lets me know that you're watching and that you're interested in the things I'm talking about. This is all about how to overcome any competitive forces, regardless of what industry you're in. If you're involved in business, it's a great thing to check out. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it. Like I said, you buy a copy, or you can get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. Now let's talk about persistence. I like sometimes the best way to understand a word is to look at its synonyms, the words that are like it. So I love going to thesaurus.com and typing words in just to see it. So persistence, these are words that have a similar meaning. Endurance, grit, perseverance, stamina, tenacity, all good action words, constancy, doggedness, follow through, indefatigability. I never know quite how to say that word, and it's not used as often. Pluck and resolution. Those are the words for persistence. That get up and go get them type of word, which is it's a fine word, but there's other ways I like thinking about this, and one of the words I tend to use more often is consistent versus persistent. And so I was looking up, I was saying, what's the difference between these words? And this is pretty interesting. I found a little graphic that says consistent versus persistent. Consistent. Well, let's talk about persistent first. Persistent means continuing to do something despite difficulties and challenges, which is good. It's kind of get you going. Implies challenges, opposition, and difficulties, and the connotations like unrelenting, determined, and resolute. Okay, that's what it's giving off. It's very much persistent is very much an action word. I picture a guy with a sword going up against a dragon, or going up against the thorny bush or whatever. I think the prince in Sleeping Beauty at the end was just going all again. It's just this persistent. Consistent has other connotations, and I think it applies to most people most of the time if you can find a way to build a habit out of it. Consistent means behaving or acting the same way, or doing something the same way over time. You think, okay, well, how's that different from persistent? Well, it also implies evenness and steadiness. If you think of the word consistency, it has a smooth feel. It's about not making wave. It's about not putting on a big fight. It's about just being consistent, doing it over and over and over. It's a little more boring, but I think it tells a different tale. Connotations like steady, reliable, and stable. Okay, so I tend to use consistency more often because I think that if you're going to build a habit, if it takes too much willpower, if you gotta pull it out from the depths of underneath you, then it won't last. You know, you only got so much of that stuff. But if you can make a steady drip, 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 that type of consistency, it tends to work well. But the same thing's true regardless, that both of those actions, it's more of a, these are more nuances, you know, to what's going on in here. But this is really good. This is what Napoleon Hill says about persistence, and this is in and this is, by the way, this is the old 1937 version of the book. You get this, the unedited copy. Most of the versions out there are edited and have been changed through the years, both while he was alive and I think after. But this is one because it's just the straight thing that he first put out. So I like hitting this one up. This is chapter 9, I think. Yeah, chapter 9 on persistence. And in this particular copy, this is page 240, and it says, there are 4 simple steps which lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great amount of intelligence, no particular amount of education, and but little time or effort. The necessary steps are, okay, you ready? Okay. Number 1, a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. Okay, so having the definite purpose backed by burning desire. It's got to be something that really gets you going, right? That's the first thing, and that's the thing a lot of people focus on, especially if they're new to building a business or whatever else. They got the desire, you know, the dream and all that stuff, and that's very important. These other pieces, I think, get left out along the way. Number 2 is a definite plan expressed in continuous action. Do you have a plan that is continuous, right? We get into that consistency thing. Do you have a plan that is expressed in continuous action? Are you going to be acting on a plan? Do you have a plan that you can act on regularly, right? Number 3, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including negative suggestions of relatives, friends, and acquaintances. That's a tough one, okay? And that takes a little bit something extra. What I found is that if you have, if you can get away from any type of negative media, whether that be news or anything that turns you off, that turns on your negativity, if you can get away from that, that's a big thing. If you have replacement media, all the better. You know, whether it be audiobooks or speeches on tape, or nowadays webinars and everything else that you can listen to, things off of YouTube. There's so much out there that you can get, including this show itself. Okay, this is a form of positive help for you, and just being able to just weed that stuff out, bring the other stuff in that helps keep you focused. That's the third thing, because here's the fourth thing, and this one I think is ignored the most. I honestly do. I don't think people understand this power. It did not hit me as hard as it should have until just this past year. This is why I'm going through this. This was a quote I rediscovered this last year because of my friend Joe. He says, number 4, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through with both plan and purpose. A friendly alliance with one or more persons. Having one or two or more people, that concept of accountability is huge. And it's something that we oftentimes ignore, but it's so huge to getting something persistent, at least in the beginning, building up the habit of persistence. It's a habit. It takes time. And like I said, if it's easier to talk about or think about in terms of consistency, do that. That's the 4 things. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the future, so stay tuned. Be sure and subscribe, follow, or what have you, wherever you're at. You can always go check out past episodes over at brianjpombo.com. That's all I got for tonight. You have a good one. Get out there and let the magic happen.